even if she is as lovely as 1,000 roses combined. And so I will be in the impossible situation of having to be courteous and amiable to her without giving the impression that I am courting her. And yet everyone else at this infernal house party will know very well why she has been invited. My mother will see to that. I tell you, Raycroft, you can wipe that grin off your face any time you like." John Raycroft laughed again as he tossed his napkin on top of the newspaper. "My deepest commiserations, old chap," he said. "It is a nasty affliction to be rich and titled and eligible, and to have been known since the tender age of 21 as a breaker of hearts. That fact only adds to your attractions, of course, at least as far as the gentler sex is concerned. But you are going to have to marry sooner or later. It is one of the obligations of your rank. Why not sooner?" "But why not later?" Peter said hastily, picking up his knife and fork and tucking into what remained of his eggs and ham. "I am not like you, Raycroft. I cannot look upon a woman across a crowded ballroom one evening, recognize her as the one and only love of my life, court her devotedly to the exclusion of all others for a whole year, and then be content to betroth myself to her and wait for another year while she gallivants off to the ends of Europe. To Vienna, to be precise," his friend said, "with her parents, who planned the treat for her eons ago. And not for a full year, Whitleaf. They will be back next spring. We will be married before the summer is out, and one of these days you will know why I would wait 3 times as long if I had to. Your problem is that you are undiscriminating. You only have to look at a woman to fall in love with her. You fall in love with everyone, and therefore with no one." "There is safety in numbers," Peter grinned reluctantly. "But I say, Raycroft, I do not exactly fall in love with women, you know. I just like them." He did too, perhaps fortunately. It was only love or any other deep commitment that he had cried off. But his liking for women, and for all people come to that, had saved him from moving from babe in arms to cynic in the course of one ghastly day. His friend shook his head. "What are you going to do, then?" he asked, nodding in the direction of the letter. "Go home and land slap in the middle of your mother's matchmaking party, or stay here at Hereford House? Why not change your mind about leaving tomorrow and stay for the full month after all? Write and tell your mamma that I was devilish disappointed when I heard you were planning to cut your visit short. Tell her my mother was broken-hearted. Tell her you feel obliged to stay for the village assembly the week after next. None of those facts would be an outright lie. In fact, the neighbourhood will probably go into deep mourning if you do not make an appearance at the assembly. It might be cancelled for lack of interest. It is a good thing I am betrothed to Alice and secure in her affections. Being with you is enough to plunge any unattached fellow into mortal gloom. No other male exists for the ladies when you are within a 10-mile radius." Peter laughed, though he was still not really feeling amused. The thing was that after 5 years of floundering around with only his own very limited wisdom to guide him, leading meanwhile the empty, aimless existence of a typical young gentleman about town, he had finally made a few firm decisions about his future. It was time to go home to Sidley Park. For 5 years he had made only brief visits there before returning to his life in London or Brighton or at one of the spas. It was time to take charge of his life and his estate, and the responsibilities that went with his rank. It was time, in other words, to grow up and be the man he had been educated to be, and actually the man he had always dreamed of being, even if the dream had been interrupted for rather too long. He had grown up loving Sidley, and the knowledge that it was his, and had been since the death of his father when he was 3. Aimless pleasure was not really for him, he had decided during the season in London this year. Neither were wild oats, though he had sown a few. He had wasted 5 years of his life, though they had not been wholly wasted, he supposed. He had learned to stand on his own feet, even if he was still not as firm on them as he hoped to be. And he had learned to filter through everything he had been taught by a loving mother and 5 sisters, and by a host of